We're walking through this devotional series on the 7 deadly sins. And today we're talking about greed. We're talking about avarice, which is an older word for greed, fundamentally. And our text that we're going to use to engage with this topic comes from Ecclesiastes chapter 5, starting at verse 8. It says, "If you see in a province the oppression of the poor and the violation of justice and righteousness, do not be amazed at the matter. For the high official is watched by a higher, and there are yet higher ones over them. But this is gain for a land in every way, a king committed to cultivated fields. He who loves money will not be satisfied with money, nor he who loves wealth with his income. This also is vanity. When goods increase, they increase who eat them. And what advantage has their owner but to see them with his eyes?" So I chose this passage for Ecclesiastes pretty specifically because there are a lot of passages in the New Testament, in Jesus' teachings, in the books of the law, that talk about how we shouldn't be greedy. But I chose this passage from Ecclesiastes for a reason, right? And it's because I think it gets a little bit better at the consequences of greed. And that is, it demands more. Greed is something that continuously demands more. So the easiest example is money. It says, whoever loves money never has enough. And you always pursue more, and you always pursue more. And then it starts to become an idol. And it starts to draw you away from your family, your friends, your faith, because you want to pursue that money. And I think it's more than it could be material possessions. It could be nice things. I think greed also can take a lot of other forms. It can take the form of a greed for power, a lust for power. But the driving force of it says it's a vanity. Other translations would say this is meaningless. And I think that's what we have to key in on, because the only thing that we should be so focused on, that we should desire to seek after so much, is our relationship with Christ. Because like it says here, when goods increase, they increase who eat them, but what advantage has their owner but to see them with his eye? Like, what's it actually good for? And elsewhere in Ecclesiastes, it says people build all this up and then their descendants waste it. And then the other connection here is the first problem we have with greed is that it becomes an idol so easily, right? And the other problem is greed is frequently at the expense of your neighbor. It gets in the way of loving your neighbor, because if you want more and more and more of something, you're not going to give it to your neighbor who needs it. Like if the object of your greed is money, and you see someone who could really use help, you're not going to give it to, because your ultimate goal isn't to help your neighbor. Your ultimate goal is to get more money. So I think those are the two problems we have with greed so much. Other than just the simple fact that God tells us don't do it, which is enough. It should be enough. But in addition to that, it draws us away from loving our neighbor. It draws us away from our relationship with our God. So, as all of these are things to avoid. The 7 deadly sins. This has been gluttony. This has been greed. This has been greed. Gluttony was a few days ago. Slip of the tongue. Brothers and sisters, go in peace. Serve the Lord. Thanks be to God.